I did a show just a couple weeks ago on can a single mother raise a boy to be a man? And generally speaking, sisters have been doing that for a long time now in our community. I don't think that it's possible from a nuance level. Like I respect, my mother was a single mother. She did an amazing job, but even she understands what I mean when it came to the actual dynamics of being a male. My father came back in my life, my high school years, and it saved me. It did definitely save me because I was starting to buck my mother, not to the extent that this young man is or whatever, because again, my mother laid the hammer most of her life. But by that age, I'm not as afraid of her. You know, she had that little fear factor that was necessary between just me and her. But now that I'm at the age where, like, I'm not going to be afraid of you no more, then those things don't necessarily work the same. And unfortunately, because she was so hard on me, what happened with my father coming into my life, he actually became the balance that allowed me to to be grow into my manhood. And she wasn't, I was still her baby. So she didn't know how to do that as well as he did because he understood the mindset that I just told you about. Like, it's the same way you as women will understand what a young teenage girl is thinking. Y'all know y'all teenage boys never make sense to y'all. Like, why does he do that? Like, that doesn't make sense to a woman, generally speaking. Like, men, we know how crazy we are when we're boys. Like, once we're older, we're like, yeah, we remember being silly on this level, but thinking we're men. Like, it doesn't even make sense because women mature faster than we do.
You said something, Montoya, that I want to jump back to. You said that your father came into your life when you were a teenager, when you were in high school, and that saved you. But what about all those young boys out there? And this is the issue that so many of us don't talk about constantly. We need to have constant dialogue about what's going on in our community, because the Black family is the key to our success. And I really want people to get that through their mind, that the Black family is how we are going to save our community. But there are so many fathers who are incarcerated. And these boys are becoming teenagers. What is that mom to do when she's done all she can and the father is incarcerated?
Right. So it's kind of the first suggestion I gave you for this other young man. It's imperative for a woman to know I have to get men in my child's life. Men, the same for the girls, but more so for the boy who doesn't have that man to model. So it's imperative that any woman understands, like I said, when we did that show, there was still an overall concept that a woman can do it. And what people are thinking is, can I raise a son to be a good citizen? That still has nothing to do with manhood and the responsibility of a family. So it is imperative that women involved as many good men that they see out there in their child's life. And I know that can be fearful in some situations because of the times we're in right now. But if you can seek out a decent man and that kind of thing or whatever, you want to, whether it's coaches, whatever. And then when I said my father came back in my life, my father was always around, but he became regular in my life, in my high school years, and it definitely saved me. But when we say, what is it there to do? It goes back to what you were saying when you say Black family. The reality is we have to hone back into what exists in all cultures, generally speaking, which is at least half the cultures are married. In other cultures, other races, we're the only race that not half of us are going down that path. So we're trying to mold this together and we've accepted this level of dysfunction, meaning we're trying to figure it out without marriage. So yes, my answer is for a mother who does not have a father in their life, they're incarcerated or whatever in their child's life, then find that man. The better answer is determine any man that you lay down with that you have a child. Like, this is obviously a pre-step, but this is what we got to start talking this way to stop this from happening. Is I have to determine, is this woman worthy of being a mother to my child? And a woman has to go vice versa. Is this man worthy of being the father of my child? We're finding, I said this on my show, we're figuring out that our baby mama and our baby daddy ain't shit after we pregnant. You're like, right. We didn't think of that in advance of having the baby. So I know that sounds crazy, but that is the fix again. The fix is determining, is this somebody I'm willing to have a child with in that moment of pleasure? Like, protect yourself at a minimum if you hadn't figured that out about this person. That's the bigger fix.
Well, you know, let me introduce the audience who are now just coming on, because I see some questions coming up and I want to bring up some of the questions. But to the audience, my beautiful brothers and sisters here on Fly Nubian Queen, the network for melanated women, I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Today we're having relationship talk a little bit earlier than 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because I'm not going to be here later on today. And Montoya, who is the owner of Mental Dialogue, not only is it a blog talk radio show, but it's also done in person as well every third Friday in Atlanta, Georgia. So when we're finished, I'm going to let you guys know how to reach him, because if you want to have more of these discussions in person, you might want to go to tonight's show in Atlanta, Georgia. We are talking about, in this segment of the show today, we're talking about parenting and how do we parent as women who are single, raising children, particularly boys. We're going to get into the girls in a little bit, but particularly boys. How do we raise a boy who has now gotten out of control, thinking he's grown to the point of smoking marijuana and leaving the house? How do we intervene in a situation like that? And Montoya is helping us to examine that from a male's perspective. Now, Montoya, you said something very, very interesting to me. And I think a lot of women want to know more, because a lot of times, like I think one of the women in the audience, her name was Javon, if I'm not mistaken. Javon, tell me where you're from so I can let Montoya know. But a lot of times, men and women, we make these statements like, you got to get a good man in your children's life. And it sounds so simple, but it's not as easy as we make it seem. And when you talk about the precepts, meaning what we must do before we actually have children with men, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to touch on that in a second, but let's just stop right there with the statement about we have to have men in our boys' life. If we're going to be single women raising our children, we have to have men. And it's not a statement I disagree with. I wholeheartedly agree with you, but it's not as easy as we can make it seem sometimes, as the people who are on the outside looking in and examining what's going on.